so I was, I was fortunate enough, with Chris Getz where they gave me an opportunity. So I interviewed for the major league role. So I went through that process, and it was such a learning experience for myself just to go through it, see what questions were being brought up, and it raised a lot of, curiosity in myself where I was like, okay, if I did run the ship, how would I do it, type of thing. So um, it just seemed like AAA would be a good fit. If I couldn't make the major league staff, then what better way to prepare players than being the level right below, right in AAA, where I know there's going to be a big group of players that may not make the team out of spring training, but still are going to be very important pieces to Chicago next year. And so that's where my mind shifts and my focus goes into getting those guys ready.
What last year you were able to have a lot of continuity with that Birmingham team, especially in the first half of keeping that group together. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult in AAA when there's a lot of immediate major league needs that come calling in the middle of the night. How do you is there a certain trick to kind of maintaining the cultural feel that you had with the AA clubhouse last year in a bit more of a topsy-turvy environment?
Yeah, look, I mean, the principles are the same, right? Like, so there's not like I'm going to do anything drastically different because it's AAA. Every level that I've managed at, it's been the same philosophy, just with minor tweaks. And so I'm sure I'm going to do that adjustment period in AAA because it is a different group of guys. You're going to have some guys that have big league experience. You just kind of hit the spectrum, guys that are hopping from different organizations. So it'll be a little more challenging, but nothing that I don't think I can't handle.
You mentioned the interview process being a learning process for you. What did you get from it that you think you'll apply to running the AAA team?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of questions as far as my baseball philosophy, how I feel we win games, how to compete with teams in larger markets, and all that stuff. And it was interesting. I kind of felt like our playoffs were a little microcosm of that, where on paper, right, like the team that we had going up against Tennessee and Montgomery may not have matched up. But what I learned is in a 3-game set, in a 5-game set, in a 7-game set, all that kind of goes out the window, and it just goes down to baseball and execution and the importance of execution and being consistent.
Kind of building off of that, just in general, what were some of the biggest lessons that you did learn last year that you can kind of take away and take ahead into this next adventure?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same principles I teach. Stoicism has kind of been big for me, and to me, it works across the board. And I got such great feedback from the players because, again, when you're in the thick of it and you're on the ground, boots running, you get lost in so much. And as far as result oriented, and these guys want to move up, and what I've really learned is there's so many variables out of your control that if you focus on those things, you kind of take your own game out. And so I really harp on them daily to just focus on what you can control and worry about that. And also, bad things are going to happen. It's inevitable. You're going to go through a rough patch. You're going to make some errors. But what are you going to do about it? The true power lies in how you react to it, right? Like, it's going to happen. A hitting slump is around the corner. All that stuff is going to happen. And I challenge them, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to let it eat you up and you're going to waste a month? Or are you going to snap out of it and become the player that you should sooner rather than later?
What do you remember about making that leap from AA to AAA as a player, and how can that help you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the baseball isn't so much different. It was more like I was talking about earlier, the clubhouse, right? So I was fortunate enough to be 20 years old in AAA. And, it was such an eye-opening thing where half the guys on the team had kids and were married. And I'm just like, wait, what's going on here? It's a different animal. And so I'm going to use that. I will use, I will lean on the player's experience because they're going to be older. They're going to have some more big league experience. And so it'll be more collaborative with the team just to make sure we're all on the same page and we're moving in the right direction.
Welcome. My name is Deshawn from the ABC station here in Charlotte. I wanted to ask a similar question, actually. The Knights announced that you are one of 4 former players to take on this role. What from your experience, particularly here in Charlotte, will you incorporate, or how does that impact the way that you lead?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do have some fond memories of Charlotte. Unfortunately for me, we didn't get to play in the beautiful stadium that you have now. We were, I think we were the one in the different state where there was a carousel out in right field. But what I am looking forward to is I spoke to Jersley the other day, and the city is so amazing, and I'm just looking forward to bringing such a good brand of baseball, an exciting brand, and hopefully the city of Charlotte and everybody can kind of get behind us, rally behind us, and we can kind of be, a super positive light this summer for Charlotte.
You know for the first time that you wanted to be a major league manager, and what about that line of work appeals to you? It's not, it's not for everybody.
No, you're right. And actually, how I got into managing was when the Yankees were like, "Hey, this is the only role we have in the FCL." And so I went home, I thought about it because I didn't know if I wanted the responsibility of being the manager and just kind of everything that it entailed. But the more I thought about it with my unique background, I said, "Hey, this kind of makes sense." Like, I never played for a guy that played, both spots at that high of a level. And then my next fear was like, am I going to want to do the grind of playing every single day again? I mean, I did that for 16 years as a player. But to be honest with you, after the first 3 days, I knew that was it for me. It was just one of those things that I was unsure of when I got into it. And the second I got into it, it got in my mind, and that's all I want to become. And when I saw the impact from the players, and not only, like we were saying earlier, not only from the player development side, but when these guys come up to me years later and be like, "Man, you really helped me grow as a man, and you helped me deal with adversity in all these different ways," I just kind of felt like I was on the right path, and this is where I should be.
Of Will Venable, as the new manager for the White Sox, and I guess in an odd question, is it tough? I mean, you probably went into that interview process knowing you, as I know you, confident that you were going to be the next White Sox manager. So how do you go on from not being that and now, refocusing there?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's simple. To me, it's simple, right? I had an opportunity. I went for it. I didn't get it. Okay. It's not the end of the world. Maybe it's not my time now. So my shift then focuses to, again, it's about the White Sox organization. It wasn't about me or who the next manager was. Into speaking to Will, so we have quite a few mutual friends, and I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on Will?" And there were nothing but they spoke so highly of Will and the type of person he was. So I was looking forward to meeting him. So like I said, we spoke yesterday. We're going to have another phone call today, and I look forward to working with him closely, learning from him. He was under Bochy and some other great guys as well, and so I'm sure there's things he's learned along the way that could help me.
I've probably asked this question 50 times, or people overall have asked this, but you had Noah Schultz last year. How close do you think Noah Schultz is to being, a contributor on the major league level?
I think when it comes to stuff wise, very close, right? But he's just one of those players that's so special. It just doesn't make sense to rush him. So kind of last year was his first year, staying healthy all year. I knew he hated the constraints that we had on him. He gave me the dirtiest look every time I took him out in the fourth inning. But he understood there's a longer plan, there's a bigger plan. And that's what me and John Eli, continued to harp on him, was like, again, the goal at the end of the day is not for you to be this AA Birmingham Barron pitcher, but it's in a year and a half, 2 years from now, you can be the frontline starter for the Chicago White Sox. And that is far more important than last season.
There was so much stability. Like, you had your starting five make all the starts in the first half last year. And is it possible to have that sort of stability at all in AAA, or is, some of the stuff you preach as far as, controlling what you can control, does that take a greater importance even than it did at AA?
I think it just all depends on how the season plays out, right? But you have to be prepared to adjust. And like I tell these guys, I'm big on routines and doing things to prepare, but it's not the all end all, right? Like, things can happen in a flash, and you have to be willing to make an adjustment. And I say that to them where, there are many games where I'm pitching, I just don't have it, and I couldn't look into Ozzie Guillen and be like, "Hey, I need you to take me out." The slider's not working, right? Like, that doesn't happen. You have to adjust, and you have to get out. And so I preach that to them. Again, we want stability. I think stability is important, but if that gets taken away or shaken, it shouldn't deter you from what you have to do.
You talked kind of about, running it like a franchise, like in and outs with being similar. Does that require, is that, I mean, obviously the White Sox always have a view of what kind of players they want to produce, but does that require more communication with the manager level above you than you've had before? And is that kind of an interesting new dynamic to what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of hit it right on the head. And we've already started that process where, once a week we've already been having meetings with, managers at every level. And it's just to make sure we are all on the same page. Again, I'm in constant contact with Paul Yanish, with Josh Barfield, Chris Gatz, and Will Venable. And it's just making sure that at every level, whether, the kid's in Kannapolis or with me in Charlotte, what we're telling him is extremely similar to when, if they get up to Chicago, the same things Will Venable will be telling them, right? And so it takes a little more work. It takes more Zoom calls and getting on the phone. But I think by doing that little extra necessary work, I think it makes things flow so much easier.
Finally, Charlotte's known as a really hitter-friendly ballpark. There's some short porches there. Is that something you got to prepare guys to deal with? I don't know if you can mold a team around it, but how do you kind of take that into account?
Yeah, it's easy, right? Like to adjust and change what you do. But unfortunately, it's still baseball at the end of the day, and I want them to remember that. Yes, maybe you make a great pitch, the guy pops it up and it goes out. I played in the California League where I think I had 14 home runs and maybe 5 of them were legit. The rest were just air balls that go out. And it's part of the game. But what I don't want them to do is completely change who they are just because of where we're playing. Because again, if they get called up, they're going to go to Chicago, Fenway, so many different places. It's too hard of a game to switch everything you do because of where you play. So everything stays the same. If we get beat on a bad break, so happens, but we're going to get some good breaks as well on offense. So.
Okay, Sergio, how we doing?
I'm doing well, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Being in the lower level system and you're seeing the players develop. I mean, what do you see for the future of the White Sox? Because there's a fan base concerned that too much attention is being put on the restructuring of the minor league system and not enough attention being put on the development for the current major league roster.
Yeah, no, I think I think where we're at, at the lower levels of the minor league side is extremely positive. We have a lot of really good athletes. Again, the game is getting bigger, stronger, faster. And so by drafting athletes, drafting guys that, are interchangeable, whether it be positions or anything else is absolutely big because as you know, you can start in one position and as you move up, you're going to go to different spots. So being versatile is extremely important. And what I would tell the fans of the Chicago White Sox are what we have in the pipeline coming is exciting. And, they are not far off from in 2 or 3 years, really making an impact and helping out the team in Chicago.
So, I mean, when you look at them again in that minor league structure, are there any guys that you see personally that are ready to be serious contenders for the big league roster for this 2005 season?
I could name a handful of guys that I had with me last year in Birmingham that would fall in that boat. But as you know, they're going to get to big league camp and you compete. And then once spring training's over, you kind of reassess how everybody did and what's best for that player in the future, right? Like by rushing a guy, it may not be the best thing for his career. So maybe have him go in the minors for a couple of months, get some confidence, figure out whatever he needs to, and then send him back up. So it's going to be a very interesting spring training. I think there's going to be a lot of competition, which is good. I think that's what creates, high competition like that kind of makes the cream rise to the top, right? And so I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what that looks like.
About bigger, stronger, faster, but what about the development of the baseball player himself? A guy that's 5'9", 175, who might play 8 or 10 years. Is that a part of the equation these days, or are those guys being pushed out?
No, it's 100% a part of the equation. And I say that, you get creative, right? Like I think every team wishes they had the checkbook of the Dodgers and the Yankees where you can just go out and do this. it doesn't mean you can't compete with those teams. It just means you got to be good in certain areas. And just by you saying that, Riku Nishida, the player that we had, right? He's 5'7", 140 pounds wet, but the kid caused such havoc and was so crucial for us the last half of the season and going into playoffs, that you need a player like that, right? You need guys. Again, it's baseball at the end of the day. Home runs are pretty and all this power stuff, but it's very hard to hit. Big league pitching is very good. So you need to produce runs. And so we are harping right now. I mean, we just had our meetings with Paul Yanish. We're going to take advantage of the extra 90 feet. So that first to third is humongous. It's the ball in the dirt getting an extra 90 feet. What we are emphasizing is it doesn't matter if you're 6'4" and just a specimen, or you're 5'8" and whatever it is. It's if you can help us win a ball game, then you're going to be vital. And Paul Yanish has made that very clear all the way down. We're looking for baseball players, and I think Brooks Baldwin was a great testament to that. Where last year he may not have even been on the radar, but the kid hit 400 in Birmingham, goes up, continues to hit. And the way I explained it to Chris Gatz was like, the kid's just a baseball player. The instincts, the feel he has is incredibly special. And I think if you get a group of players like that, I mean, I'll go toe to toe with them against, any big market team you have.
Thank you very much. Hello, Sergio. Mike Solarte here with Spectrum News 1 in Charlotte. Welcome to town. Welcome to town when you get here. Question I have for you, and I apologize if this was asked earlier. I got on a little bit late. Being a pitcher, pitchers generally don't find their way into the manager's seat in the dugout. So, and you're coming off a Southern League championship. Why is your style or your, view of the game how does that make you successful? How did that work for you guys last year?
Yeah, I think it just goes back, like I was saying, to my unique background. Being a first rounder out of high school as a shortstop, to then playing 7 years, in AA, AAA as a shortstop, to then converting. That enables me, when I get in the manager's seat, I sit in the unique perspective of the guy on the mound to every player out on the field. I've been in their shoes. I know what they're going through. And I also learned, by being in the big leagues from other big league players, the right ways to think, how to approach the game. And so all these things that I've accumulated over 16 years of professional baseball, it's what I try to impress on the players. And so I keep it simple with them. And I think it resonates with them because it takes a lot of the clutter that, is in our minds as players, right? Because this game is so difficult and it's based on failure. I just try to get them to see failure as another way to see success, where success is just around the corner. And it's not harping on failure and I had a bad game, but there's another one tomorrow. And it's just switching their mindset out of a negative mindset into a positive one. And it's worked.
And just as a follow-up, coming off of that championship, so you've been there, you've seen what it takes for a minor league team to put together a season and win. How does that kind of affect your approach as you come into Charlotte now to try to get them into a championship position?
Yeah, it's I've been fortunate. Like this is I've had 3 years managing. I've made it to the championship game 3 times and I've won it twice. So for me, it's if it's not broken, right, like no need to fix it. So I'm going to take that same approach. But with that being said, there will be minor tweaks because, I am with a different group. I'm with a AAA group, like I was saying earlier. And so I'll be cognizant and aware of that. But the philosophy and the message will be the same. I mean, like I said, it's worked so far. I have no doubt it'll work in Charlotte as well.